Resident Evil.
Wow, Resident Evil 8 already. Feels like only yesterday that I saw the announcement that RE7 would be in first person and thought, wow, that's gonna be shit. Well, boy was I wrong. For background, RE7 was one of my favorite games of the past decade. I love the Resi games, at least all the old ones. It's no secret that Resi 5 and 6 were not great. They aren't bad per se, but they go in a direction that feels very non-Resident Evil. I didn't have high hopes for 7, but goddamn, it really is one of the best. After that, we had the remakes of 2 and 3, which were also very good in their own right. All in all, I was exceedingly excited for 8, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. However, it's not a perfect game, and there are definitely some parts that make me worried for the future of this franchise. But as they say, it's easier to write criticism than it is to write well. So first, I'll start with what I liked before moving on to what I didn't. Damn, does this game look good. I mean really, the whole atmosphere is really consistent and plays well with the story. It's a mashup of this 16th century Gothic architecture and a more grimy current aesthetic. Some of these locations look like they're ripped straight out of Bloodborne, and that's not really a bad thing. That being said, I loved all the various locations in this game, but the highlight would definitely be Castle Dimistrisk? I'm just gonna say Dimmy. From the dungeons to the rooftops, the tension and terror of this place hung over me like a thick fog and never really left, even after I knew that the tall lady had been dealt with. I was in constant fear that at any moment I would turn a corner and Lady Demi or one of her daughters would be right there. One thing I saw quite a lot of people complain about online was how short this section of the game was, considering that it was all that was shown off in the trailers. While I can see where they're coming from, I have to respectfully disagree. You see, I like it when a game or movie doesn't spoil everything in the trailer. It allows me to figure things out on my own, and for me at least, leads to a better overall experience. As far as the length, I thought it was perfect. It was just short enough that it never lost that tension I talked about earlier, but not so long as to become stale. I felt like the game did a good job of moving me on to the next area as soon as the current one was losing its luster. Another part of the game that I felt was really well designed was the dollhouse. I was wondering how they would effectively combine the idea of the dolls with good gunplay, but instead they didn't even bother to try. They just took away your guns and let you try and solve your way out of the house. I was constantly afraid that the next puzzle would be the one to unleash some new horror upon me, until it finally did. Moving on from that, the next best part of this game is easily the enemy designs and variety. Probably my least favorite part of Resident Evil 7 was the fact that other than the main family, all the enemies were these stupid looking blob monsters that were more comical than scary. Well, they fixed this problem in 8 and may have even gone a little overboard. From the lichens to these wraith looking things, all the designs are absolutely hair-raising. Everyone's talked to death about Lady Dimitrescu's design for certain reasons, but her design really is fantastic. This towering freak with a regal exterior, but as soon as she spots you, all sense of composure is lost as she rushes at you ready to tear you apart. All of her daughters are well designed as well. I have a personal fear of insects, which for me made Marguerite the most terrifying part of Resident Evil 7. And the Dimitrescu sisters do a good job of capturing that same terror. Some other designs I really liked were the Lichen King and Heisenberg. They both did a good job of sending a chill down my spine whenever I saw them. There are a fair few designs I didn't care for, but I'll go over them in the bad. For now, moving away from design and more towards gameplay, man, are the guns great. Not counting extras and Chris's gun, there are 10 unique weapons you can get, all with their own upgrade paths and attachments. All the guns feel weighty and realistic, and enemies will actually react to where you shoot them. In Resident Evil 7, which was the first game where you played as Ethan, the guns were unstable and hard to use, which made sense because story-wise, it was Ethan's first time handling gun as well. But 8 takes place 3 years later, and by this time Ethan had undergone military training, and so the gunplay feels much better. Another integral part of the gameplay that was lifted right out of 4 is the shop. I think the shop is serviceable, it's an interesting addition to the game, but I have my gripes. What I really wanted to talk about, and what I really loved about the shop, is Duke. Duke, or the Duke, I suppose, is such a fascinating and fun character to me because unlike most characters in the games, and just like the shopkeeper of 4, he never really gets an explanation. But unlike the shopkeeper of 4, Duke is much more important to the main plot. Throughout the whole game, I wasn't sure if he was on my side or secretly against me, and I loved it. Alright, well I feel like that was all of the big stuff, so I'll quickly go over some of the small things I really liked. First things first, the picture book at the beginning was very well designed and set up the tone very well. Plus, I liked how each of the characters in the story represented one of Miranda's children. Demetrisk was the bat, the doll maker was the spider weaver, Moreau was the fish king, and Heisenberg was the metal horse. This moment takes on a completely different meaning later on in the game when you realize that it was Miranda telling you the story and not Mia. It's almost like she was taunting you the whole time. Another thing that I liked was how Ethan seems so done with all the bullshit. Reminds me of Leon in 4, and I got a few laughs out of some of his more funny lines.
Looks like your outside matches your inside. So bitch.
Yet another thing that I never realized I needed in a Resi game before was a New Game Plus. The games have always had their New Game bonus rewards for completing certain challenges, but none have had a full-on New Game Plus, carrying over all weapon upgrades, attachments, and ammo amounts. This one small addition makes the already great replayability of these games 10 times better. One last thing that I really enjoyed was the improved crafting system. I liked how there was a larger variety of crafting parts, and how you were able to craft other types of ammo than just shotgun and pistol. One of the things I liked most was how you can now craft bombs and mines. It not only made them more easily obtainable, but it also meant that I didn't feel the need to hoard them all until the end like I usually do in games like this. Now that I've gotten all of that out of the way, I suppose it's finally time for me to move on to the bad. If I'm going to start anywhere, I suppose I should get the most important thing out of the way first. This game makes me fear for the future of the series. It's no secret that RE8 takes heavy inspiration from RE4, and while 4 was a great game, it was also what caused the downward spiral of the Resi games. After 4, the RE team really thought that people only played the games for the action and not for the survival horror that its roots were based on. I fear for the series because 8 seems to be heading in that same direction. 7 was a masterclass in survival horror, while 8 definitely fell too far on that action side of the fence. Now don't get me wrong, there were some fairly scary parts of this game, but for most of it, at least on normal difficulty, I felt like I had plenty to waste. By the time the final boss rolled around, I had nearly limitless ammo and so many healing items I was able to brute force my way through the fight without even trying. I understand that Village of Shadows difficulty may fix these problems, but you have to beat the game at least once to even unlock this harder mode. One of the things that intrigued me most about the ending of this game is that after the post-credits scene, it says the father's story is now ended, which then led me to believe that we would be playing as Ethan's daughter Rose in the next game. The more I thought about this, the more excited I became. Based on some obvious lines in the story, Rose seems to be immensely powerful as well as having some kind of power over the mold. I got excited because just think about all the cool mold abilities we could have in 9. I'm thinking along the lines of the Typhoon neuromods of Prey. But then I thought about it a little bit harder. and realized that that wouldn't actually be all that great. Now, Prey is a great game on its own, but it goes for a very different tone and mood than the Resident Evil games, and if you try to insert powers into this, it could bring back too much of that action that I dislike and could harm the series. Now, of course, that's all just speculation, and I'm not going to fault the game for something that hasn't even been confirmed. I just believe that RE8 left me with some bad thoughts, that the team would completely forget about what made 7 so great and instead fall back on what caused 5 and 6 to fail. The next thing that I found really put a damper on the game, as much as I hate to say it, was the story. Really, there was just this one part that brought down the whole game, and it's not really as much of a part as it is a person, and that person is Chris Redfield. Chris is so frustrating in this game because he barely is in it, even though he's one of the main catalysts of the stories. I liked how he was introduced into 7. He was simply at the end to show you that even though this game seemed very different, it was still all part of the original Resi canon. Especially after playing the 7 DLC Not a Hero, I really did want to see more of this character that I loved. No matter what the trailers for 8 tried to get us to believe, I always knew that Chris could never have been the bad guy. I was really less interested in why they would kill Mia, as much as I was intrigued by why he couldn't have said anything to Ethan. From books and some dialogue throughout the game, you get a feeling that Ethan and Chris have formed some sort of relationship. Whether they're friends or it's purely a work relationship is never clearly shown, but you can tell that there's some level of trust between them. So then, I logically concluded that there must have been some sort of grand conspiracy as to why Chris would not tell Ethan the plan. But there wasn't one. He just chose not to. And no, having a character call out Chris for this stupid decision doesn't cancel out the stupid decision.
I know it's too late now, but we really should have told Ethan the plan.
There wasn't time. We didn't expect Miranda to act so soon.
Even so, you should have told him.
Yeah.
That's not even to mention the fact that he only shows up 3 times in the whole game, including when you play as him for a short section. Overall, this Chris felt like a true waste of the character. Although I would be lying if I said that I didn't get a chuckle from this line.
That boulder punching asshole! But you're first!
The next thing I want to complain about is kind of ironic considering how much I gushed about her area in the good, but I feel like Dimitrescu wasn't a very good invincible chaser enemy. And when I say that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. In every game past 7, they've had this need to put a section in the game that's like this. Now, Dimitrescu is nowhere near as disappointing as Nemesis from the RE3 remake was, but she never quite hits the highs of Jack or Mr. X. Really, the main problem is that there's just not a large area that she can explore. She dwells only in the castle and is only a threat when she is scripted to block your way. I feel like an obvious and easy fix to this problem is to simply add a character like this to another area. One character I felt was very underutilized, especially for how great his design was the Lichen King. He shows up twice in the beginning, and then you don't see him again until you have to kill him. Imagine now if after you cleared the castle and got all the keys that allow you to fully open up and explore the main village, you once again run into the Lichen King. Now he slowly stalks you as you forge for resources, making exploration of the village more of a risk-reward rather than a necessity to survive. In this simple way, we're both improved the chaser portion and the village portion at the same time, as well as giving more of a use to the Lichen King. Speaking of missed opportunities, there's one more thing I was really excited for that turned out to be a horrible disappointment, and that would be the wasted potential of the cultish villagers. In one of the demos that was released before the game came out, we got to see a scene where a bunch of the surviving villagers are scared but trying to survive in a house. Then, one of them transforms into a werewolf and kills them all. Now, this scene is awesome, but what really got me excited was right before that werewolf transformation, all the villagers gather together and pray to Mother Miranda for guidance. Mother Miranda is the main villain of the game, so I was excited to see what would happen to the villagers. If they would realize I didn't love Miranda and all turn on me, or if maybe they would learn to think for themselves and help Ethan fight back. But all this was just wishful thinking, because this is all we get of the villagers. In this one scene, we see all of the remaining villagers and we watch all of them die. This to me was the biggest missed opportunity in the whole game. Bottom line is, the game's pretty good. I have my gripes. Like all games, RE8 is not perfect. But there's plenty of good things that outweigh the bad and make the final product an excellent experience. It's got good combat, great locations, and overall just feels fun to play. Most of my problems with the game stem from the story or my fear of how this game may affect the series going forward. And these things are easily ignored. In conclusion, buy this game. It's well worth the price. Wow, that was long and pretty ranty. Is ranty even a word? Oh well, whatever. If you made it this far, then thank you. Well, I say you, but really it's probably only me watching this. I'm not really sure why I made this review or who I made it for, other than myself, I suppose. I really enjoyed making this little passion project. It took time, it took effort, but in the end, it was fun. If you got half the amount of enjoyment watching this video as I had making it, then I would consider it time well spent. So again, I thank you.